Okay, we're sponsored by Shalom Fogel, Lilish Bas Yaakov Zeb ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tivya Miriam Bas God, Yosef ben Sion ben Yaakov Zev, for Fu Shalema for Moshe Aryeh ben Miriam, and for a great shidduch for Chaya Tivya Bas Shoshana Gittel. We're sponsored by Baruch Ian, who is en route to Florida. Lilish Bas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Yona, Avram ben Shmuel HaKoyen, and for Shalema for Liba Basanya. We're sponsored anonymously for a Zivik Hagun for Batya Basara. We're sponsored by Ed Saleh from London, and he is sponsoring it. The for Shalema for Yosef Shmuel ben Miriam.
You had a name?
Yes.
Yocheved Bas Shena.
Yocheved Bas Shena.
Leah Bas Edel Minka.
Leah Bas Edel Minka.
Mordechai Tzvi ben Rus Chana.
Mordechai Tzvi ben Rus Chana.
And Chaya Freda Bas Rachel Rivka.
Chaya Freda Bas Rachel Rivka. Shalom Chaim ben Shoshana. Nechama Bas Miriam. They should have a refuah shalem b'sech shechel Yisrael. We have a new member, Gavriel. A big welcome to you. It's really wonderful to have you. Here we have.
We have a WhatsApp group. If you want to join it, I'll tell you my phone number, 347, if you have a way to write it down, and I'll add you to the list.
Sure. I'll text you right now for my phone.
Okay.
347
345 5647.
5647. 347 345 5647.
Perfect. You'll get the
dialing you right now.
Times or, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Looking forward to joining. Thank you.
Okay.
67530.
Yes, and we're going to learn for a tragic situation. A boy from Biyan was swept away in a nachal in Modi'in, and they're looking for him now. Moshe ben Razel Vered. They should find him, and he should be healthy. Okay, so we are holding. We are holding 4 lines from the bottom of Daf Beis Amid Beis, and Reb Shimon introduced a new idea that when you do something shaloi lishma, but it's clearly, your action clearly belies that can't be what you're doing, so it's kosher. That was his idea, that if you do a minchas machbas l'shem marcheshes, it's good, because obviously it's not a marcheshes, because you're doing it on a griddle, you're not doing it in a deep fryer. So the Gemara says, but then we should say the same thing by other cases. Says the Gemara, says the Gemara,
not for, it's like 10 lines out.
Right, correct. We're up to Elamayata. No, we did the first question.
No.
Yeah, right, correct. That's what I said. 4 lines from the bottom. Says the Gemara, but what about Oila Sa'if, a offering of a bird ola? Now, the offering of a bird ola, it has to be done above the red line, while the chatas is done below the red line. So, oila sa'if, shemitza dama lamala, that you squeeze out the blood above, l'shem chatas sa'if, for the sake of a chatas sa'if, teratza. Because obviously it's not a chatas, because you're doing the blood above, and also because you're squeezing it out. Ma'aseh moichichin oleh d'oila sa'ifi. The ichata sa'ifi, because if it's a chata sa'if, lamata have avidla, you would do it below, and you would be doing hazah, you would be doing spraying. Says the Gemara, no. See, a chatas, an oila, you just squeeze the blood, an oila saif. A chata saif, you do two things. You spray it, hazah, and you also squeeze it. So the Gemara says, you know why it's no good? Because it doesn't belie, when you squeeze it above the red line, it doesn't belie that it's not a chatas. Because imrei dilma mitzui de basar azahu. Maybe this is the squeezing of the blood of the chatas after you sprinkle it. And you sprinkled it below correctly. The squeezing, the second part, could be done anywhere. Squeezing it is kosher in any place. Says Gemara, yeah, but okay, you're not going to wiggle out of this one. Chatas ha'oif, shehiza dama lamata, chatas ha'oif, where you squeeze the blood below, and you did it l'shem oila sa'oif, and you did it for the sake of an oila. Now, that certainly belies that it's not an oila, because an oila has to be squeezed on top, above the red line, and not below. The Maseh Machichan Aleh, because it's clear, the Chata Saifi, it's not an oila. The oila Saifi, because if it would be an oila Saif, it has to be above the red line. Lamala Avalei, first of all, you would do it above, and Umitzu Avalei, and you would squeeze it out. Says, you're right. According to the opinion of Reb Shimon, in such a case, and let's review the case again. In such a case where you did a chata sa'if and you squeeze the blood below for the sake of an ayla, your taka would be kosher, because your action belies that it's not an ayla. Because if it was an ayla, you would have done it above and not below. You're taka right, hakanami, because Reb Shimon didn't say that we don't say this svara by bird offerings. He said we don't say this svara by animal offerings. He says we don't say it by sacrifices, by animal offerings. He didn't rule out by bird offerings. By bird offerings, you could also have a situation where his actions belie his thoughts, and it doesn't disqualify. Says Gemara, okay, but how are you going to wiggle out of some things by animals? So the first Gemara's kasha is easy shmizi. Kache kashim, let's say Berish took kache kashim, let's say an ayla, sheshachton biztzafin, he shechted it on the north, l'shem kachim kalim, and he had in mind that it should be a shlomim, which is kachim kalim. It should be good, because masayim meichichan aleim the kachim, and what he did proved that it was kachim and not kachim kalim, because he did it on the north. The kachim kalim, because if it was kachim kalim, then he could have done it on the south. So the Gemara says that's not a kasha. The fact that he did it on the south doesn't mean that it's not. The fact that he did it on the north doesn't mean that it's not a shlamim. A shlamim can be done anywhere, right? Because kachim kalim kol makam ba'azara is kasha. So the fact that he did it on the north doesn't belie that it's not that it can't be a shlamim. That kachei kalim is done even on the south. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it on the north. So if he had in mind that it should be, he did a ayla, and he had in mind that it should be a shlamim, and he did it on the north, you can't say that his actions belie that it's not a shlamim, because the shlamim could be done on the north too. it says that by Kachim Kalim, the Shechita could be anywhere. But of course we're expecting the next question, the reverse. If let's say Berish says he's bringing a Shlomim, which is Kachim Kalim. Kachim Kalim, Sheshachtam B'dorim L'Shem Kachim Kachim. He shechted it on the south, and he shechted it L'Shem and Oila. So we should say it should be good. Because obviously his actions belie that it's not an Oila, because if it would be an Oila, since it's Kachim Kachim, it would have to be on the north. All Kachim Kachim have to be on the north. L'Ratzu, it should be acceptable according to Reb Shimon, because Maaseh and Moichichan Aleim, his action proves the Kachim Kalim Nino, that it's Kachim Kalim. Why? Because he did it on the south. The Kachim Kachim, because if it was Kachim Kachim, but Safan Avavali, it should have to do it on the north. So now the Gemara introduces a new idea. Gemara says no. Berish said that the carbon, he's bringing an Oila. He did it, excuse me, Berish says he's bringing a Shlomim. And he did it on the south, like Kachim Kalim is supposed to do it. And he said that it's L'Shem Oila. So he said, according to Reb Shimon, it should be good. Because obviously it's not an Oila, because if it's an Oila, he should have done it on the north and not on the south. Answers the Gemara, no. Really, he took this Shlamim, and he had in mind that it should be an Oila, and that's why it's no good. He did it on the south. He did it wrong. He did it wrong. But he wanted it to be an Oila. Now I know, I smell the wood burning in Berish's mind, and then we should say that by the mincha too. I smelled it all the way from here. I smelled the wood burning. Baruch Hashem, the Gemara is going to ask that question. But let's see the Gemara first inside. Imre, really, when Berish did the Shlomim on the south and had in mind that it should be an Oila, really Berish Taka wants Kachim Kachim in him. He Taka wants it to be an Oila. The wrong designation. Ma'aver hu da'aver, just he did the Oila wrong, v'shachal u'b'darim, and shechted in the south. So the Gemara says, so then you just destroyed Reb Shimon's entire basis. So Reb Shimon says that if you do a machpis l'shem marcheshes, right, so he said it's kosher because obviously his actions are belying. It's not a marcheshes. He's doing it on a griddle. He's not doing it on a deep fryer. Say maybe no, he wants it to be a marcheshes. He did it on the griddle. Ma'aver davar. He just went against the rule. He just did it wrong. Iachi, that's the Gemara's question. Iachi, machbas l'shem marcheshes nami. Hay de komitza l'marcheshes. That which he did the kmitza for the sake of marcheshes. Imri taka hay b'marcheshes noda. That he taka is changing the designation to a marcheshes. He did it in the machbas. But the ma'isel b'machbas, the marcheshes, he really wanted it to be deep fryer. And he just went against, he did it wrong. Says the Gemara, by a mincha, it's different. By a mincha, it's different. Because by a mincha, if if you say that Hari Alai Marcheshes, and you proceed to do it in a machbas, it's kosher as a machbas. And you just have to bring another carbon. We learned that in the Mishnayos, when we were learning Mishnayos. Again, there's a special din by a mincha, that if I say Hari Alai Marcheshes, and I do it in a griddle, the fact is it's kosher as a mincha in the griddle. I just have to bring another carbon. Says the Gemara, Hasam kinami b'marcheshes nada. Even if Berish had in mind that it should be a marcheshes, ki maisilo b'machbas, when he brings it in a machbas, machbas have it. It becomes minchas machbas, just he has to bring another one. Keditnan, ha'ayme Hari Alai b'machbas. Let's say that Danny says, I accept upon myself a machbas, v'hevi b'marcheshes, and he brings it in a deep fryer. The end result is that that mincha is kosher as a deep fryer mincha. Or b'marcheshes, he says, I accept a deep fryer, v'hevi b'machbas, and he brings it in the griddle. Actions speak louder than words. Masha hevi. It turns out to be a griddle mincha or a marcheshes mincha. Just since initially he said Hari Alai b'machbas, he's going to have to bring another carbon. V'dei nidra lo yatsa. But that's not true in a case where he says zu. If he says v'dilma amar zu lahavi b'machbas, if he says this one should be brought b'machbas, and he switches and he does it in a marcheshes, that's not kosher. Because here he specified that this has to be a machbas. V'dilma amar zula avi b'machbas v'hevi b'marcheshes. There it's different. Keditnan zula avi b'machbas. This one to be brought in a machbas v'hevi b'marcheshes, or zu to be brought b'marcheshes v'hevi b'machbas, hari zu psula. That's no good. Says the Gemara, you know what? It depends on whether you hold when you bring the flour in its initial keli. Before, remember, one of the avodas is you take the kmitza and then you mekadesh the kmitza in a keli. But before that happens, you brought the flour, all the flour, the isarina flour, and you said it should be a machbas. The question is, when you do that, does that have a, is that official?
That means the flour.
Huh?
That means the flour.
Right.
We don't care about the keli.
Now again, you put the flour in a keli initially, and you say it should be a machbas.
What keli is this?
Even not a klei sharas. But the fact that you bring it in the keli and say that it should be a machbas, does that lock it in? So the Gemara says, Ein achanami Rabbanan achanami. Because the Rabbanan hold that when you bring it in the keli initially, and you say it should be a machbas, that locks it in as a machbas. So if you say zu, so then you can't switch it. But the Reb Shimon, Kaven the Amar Reb Shimon af yedei nidra yotza, he says if you switch it and you say that this machbas should be a marcheshes, your yotza, even your neder, right? So you see the fact that you put it in the keli initially doesn't lock it in. alma kfiyusa demana v'loy klumu. Putting it in the keli is nothing. And therefore, v'loishna amar zu, it makes no difference whether he said this, v'loishna amar alai, or he said upon me. So the Gemara says, okay, but I mean, it's such obvious questions. An oila is a male, and a chatas is a female. So if Iran says, I'm bringing this oila l'shem chatas, it should be kosher. Obviously, it's not a chatas because it's a male. So according to Reb Shimon, who says if your actions belie your words, it's okay. So if he says he's bringing an oila l'shem chatas, obviously it's not a chatas because it's a male. Elamiyata oila sheshachal l'shem chatas, it's a teratza, because it can't be so. The high zachar behind the keva. An oila is a male and a chatas is a female. Says the Gemara, keva di kasir nasi. There is a chatas that's a male. This chatas of a nasi, keva di kasir nasi, the zacharu lo yedia. It's not definitive, right? Because it could be that's the chatas of a nasi. Says the Gemara.
He's not a nasi.
Huh?
He's not a nasi.
When somebody sees it, they don't know. Says the Gemara, but amal l'shem chatas yachid ma'iklamema. But what if, like Rabbi Kranz was saying, you didn't say the chatas of a nasi? If you said that this oila should be for a chatas of an individual, it should be kosher, because obviously it's not, because it's a zachar. It can't be a chatas of an individual because that's an akeva. V'su, the other way around. Let's say we need a sinner, Marshall, right? Let's say Marshall is trying to figure out if he adds up all the times we start late, if it'll equal to all the days that he plays hockey. He's trying to figure it out. It says the Gemara, if chatas yochid, if let's say Marshall was machal Shabbos b'shoigeg, he brings a chatas yochid, and he says that it's doing it as an oila, it should be kosher. Obviously, it can't be an oila because the chatas in the cave and an oila is a zachar. So chatas yochid sheshachtel l'shem oila teratza, the chatas nekeva because the chatas is a female, the oila zachar. Says the Gemara again, remember we said it has to be recognizable. It's not recognizable whether it's a male or a female because its sex is covered by its tail. Says the Gemara, Michasia ba'alia. Says the Gemara, wait a second, there's a sheep and a goat. Okay, the sheep has a tail, but the goat doesn't have a tail. Says the Gemara, I see kivsa. I see seira ma'iklamema. The seira doesn't have a tail, so it's clear. Ella says the Gemara, and this is true with every one of us city folk over here, us city bumpkins. We don't know whether it's a male or a female. Ella, people don't know whether it's a male or a female. Says the Gemara, but Pesach sheshachtu l'shem arshim lirtzeh. We know a Pesach has to be a yearling. An arshim is 2 years old. So if you do a Pesach for the sake of an arshim, it should be good. Because obviously it's not an arshim because it's a year old and an arshim is 2 years old. The I ben shana, I ben shtaim says, no. There is other ashamas that have to be 1 year old. Kevanika ashim nazir ashim mitzvah that have to be yearlings. So like psikale, it's not definitive. So then the Gemara follows up, obviously. Amal ashim ashim gezelos ashim ashim meilos ma'ikalameim. What if he says that it should be for an ashim gezelos, the guilt offering brought for theft or for trespass of hektish? Because those have to be 2 years old. So obviously it can't be a Pesach because, obviously if he says that he's doing the Pesach for an Ashim Me'ilas, Ashim Gzelis, it can't be because his carbon is a yearling. And those carbonas have to be 2 years old. V'su, the other way around. Ashim Gzelis for Ashim Me'ilas, an Ashim Gezela and an Ashim Me'ilas, Sheshachtan L'Shem Pesach, it should be kosher because obviously it's not a Pesach because these carbonas are 2 years old. L'ratzu, the Pesach ben Shana, because the Pesach is a yearling, V'hani ben Shtei Shanim, and the Ashim Gezelis and the Ashim Me'ilas are 2 years old. So we know what the Gemara's answer is going to be. Most people don't know the difference whether it's a 1 year old or a 2 year old. Right. We have no idea. We look at Marshall. We have no idea if he's 30 or 40. We don't know. It says the Gemara, Ela bein ben shana bein ben shtei shanim. The difference between 1 year old and 2 year old, lava daitao de inche. The Ike ben shana de milzeke ben shtayim. There's a 1 year old that looks like a 2 year old. And the Ike ben shtayim, there's a 2 year old, the milzeke ben shana. But now the Gemara says, Sar sheshachtu l'shem ashim. If you bring a carbon, a sire, let's say a shlamin, can be brought for a goat, and you say that it's for the sake of an ashim, ashim has to be a sheep. There, obviously, it's not a sheep, because a sheep has wool, and a sire has hair. Says the Gemara, there you don't have to be a rocket scientist to make the mistake. The height semer, because a sar is a sheep is wool, by sayer, and that's why it's called the sire, right? Because it's hair. Says the Gemara, well, you know what people will say? Maybe it's taka a sheep, but the wool was cut off. And it's a black sheep, so it looks like a goat, because it doesn't have wool, the wool was cut off. Imre dichra uchmo, maybe it's just a shorn black sheep. So now the Gemara says, come on. Egel upar, a calf or a bull, sheshachtan l'shem Pesach. Well, if let's say you brought a calf or a bull as an oila and you had in mind it should be a Pesach, it should be kosher. Obviously, it's not a Pesach because Pesach has to be a sheep or a goat. It can't be a bull. It can't be a calf. Says the Gemara, Egel apar sheshachtan l'shem Pesach or v'ashim lirtzu. The Egel apar b'Pesach v'ashim leka. There's no calf and bull that can be used for a Pesach or an Ashim. And even city bumpkins know the difference between a bull and a sheep. Says the Gemara, you're right. Reb Shimon will hold you got a case. You got a case. Reb Shimon will hold in this case it's kosher. Reb Shimon will hold in this case if Shalom Fogel went ahead and was bringing an egel as an oila, and he said it should be a Pesach or an Ashim, according to Reb Shimon, it's kosher. It's obviously not a Pesach and an Ashim, because can't be an egel. Eino kanami. When Reb Shimon says it's not the case by Zvachim, oh my Zvachim, it means Rav Zvachim. By most of Zvachim, we don't say this svara that your actions belie your words. But there is some cases. You found the case. Now we're going to go back to the stira Reb Shimon on Reb Shimon. And I think by the time we turn the page already, it's high time I welcome in Yisrael Fisher, Saba, Marshall Castle, Irving Fishbaum, Yaakov Warman, Mo Kushner, Yitzi Fuchs, Dr. Guy, Barry Cement, Shalom Fogel, Shimon Klein, Daniel Rosenberg, Ruvain Pollack, A.B. Spry, Shelley Zeitlin, and friends joining us from Phoenix, Mark Frankel, Dr. Black, Rabbi Kranz, Nachman Chapler, Michal Gavriel, a new member of the Shir. Gavriel, it's really wonderful to have you. Really, I mean, not wonderful, really, really, really wonderful. Gavriel, did you find out about the Shir from the sign? That's
Yes, I did. I saw it from, someone posted it on, I don't know where it was. Maybe I looked on Google search, as I've been hearing the Rav on Kol Lashon. And I think there was a Facebook ad. Speaking of Facebook before, there's a Facebook ad with the Rav with the sheer information. And
you know something? I know somebody put it on Facebook. I know. So the mice is, I know somebody sent me a message. Is the Rav back on Facebook? Somebody put it.
I think I put it on your page that's still there. The how to re-find you.
Okay. So you Gavriel, you just made the signs all worth it. Just made my Shaliman.
I was looking for the Rav. I wasn't sure the Rav was. I've been hearing for years on Kol Lashon. I didn't know where the Rav was, and I just...
Wonderful. Moshe Lehman, Stephen Holtzman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Yitzi Muller, Ilya Shutman, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg. I see there's two phone numbers. One is David Helfgott. I don't know who the other phone number is. And here in the shul, we have a beautiful crowd. Berish Gesseman, Gedalia, Chaim, Michal Avram, Mordechai, Shleimer, Iran, Yehuda Solomon, Danny Fogel, Ruvain Shannon, and Rebellia Yafi. Now, Rav Amar, so now let's address the stira. Let's go back to the stira. We had a stira, Reb Shimon on Reb Shimon. The Reb Shimon says in our Mishnah that if actions show not like you say, so it's kosher. So if you do a minchas machbas l'shum marcheshes, it's kosher because obviously it's not a marcheshes because you're doing it in a machbas. But Reb Shimon then quotes, there's another brayso that says, a pasuk kodesh kadoshim hi kechatas, that mincha is kodesh kadoshim. By the way, that's important to know as we learn this Masechta. Mincha is a kodesh kadoshim. That means that the shirayim of the mincha after the kmitza can only be eaten by male kahanim and only in the azara. It's the highest level. So it says kodesh kadoshim kechatas. And Reb Shimon says just like a chatas shaloi l'shma is no good, so also mincha shaloi l'shma is no good. So it's a stira Reb Shimon and Reb Shimon. So Rav Amar Rava says like kasha kan b'kaimetz mincha l'shum mincha. Where does he say that it's good when you do a mincha for the sake of a mincha? Kan b'kaimetz mincha l'shum zevach. If you do the mincha for an animal carbon, then even Reb Shimon agrees that shaloi l'shma is no good. Now he says, why if you switch the designation from one mincha to another mincha is it good? Mincha l'shem mincha, that's because the pasuk says, v'zois teiras ha-mincha. And whenever it says zois teira, it means it's a teira achas. Teira achas l'kol ha-menachos. And therefore, even though you had in mind, you did minchas machbas for shem minchas macheshes, it's good because it says teira achas. But if you have in mind that it should be an oila, l'shum zebach, that's no good because zayis teres hamincha v'zebach lo ksiv. So now the Gemara asks the obvious question. It's very nice, Rabbi, that you're saying that Reb Shimon's reason is because of zayis teres hamincha, but that's not the reason that Reb Shimon gives. Reb Shimon gives the reason because his actions belie his words. Says the Gemara. The Tana says that the reason is because his actions belie his words, not because it says Zayis Teres Amincha. So now Rava reinterprets what Reb Shimon means. You see, where your actions belie your words, now the Gemara changes the whole pshat. where your actions belie your words, we should say it definitely should be possible. You say a mincha and then you say it should be marcheshes, which is a stira to what you're doing. That surely should be possible. Says in Ma'achi Kamer, this is what he means. Afal gav de machshava de loy minkarihi, even though your machshava is not recognizable in what you're doing. It's the opposite of what you're doing. And therefore, v'tipasel, if your mamish contradict what you're doing, it should surely be partial. Says in Gemara, Zois Teres HaMincha, Tera Achas L'Kol HaMenachos. Umay Aval B'Zvachim Ein Akain. He says, by Zvachim we might say it is kosher. Because it's the same shchita, it's the same Kabbalah, it's the same Zrika. Umay Aval B'Zvachim Ein Akain. Afal Gav, that his actions don't, his thoughts don't contradict his actions. Afal Gav, says the Gemara, the Shrita Achas L'Kulan and the Zrika Achas L'Kulan. So his actions don't belie what he's saying, and I might think it's good. It's no good because Zayis Taurus HaMincha Zavach Lo Ksiv. Says the Gemara, but if that's so, what? What do you mean change the daf? We're not learning two black. So it might feel like two black. There's a lot of details over here. And it's details that we're not used to. But don't worry, you're going to get used to this very quickly. It's going to go easier and easier. Says the Gemara, if you're telling me that where it says Zayis Teres HaMincha, it's good any denomination of Mincha, then we should say any denomination of Chattas should be good too. Because it says Zayis Teres HaChattas, some gesund. Elameata, says the Gemara, Chattas Chelev. Let's say, got to pick somebody, Barry. Elameata. Chattas Chelev. Let's say Barry ate Chelev b'shogeg. It's in Issachar, so he has to bring a Chattas. And he had in mind that it should be a Chattas v'dam. Chattas Chelev sheshachta l'shem Chattas dam, or l'shem Chattas avodas kechavim, which is also in Issachar, or l'shem Chattas nazir, l'shem Chattas mitzayra, or for the Chattas brought for a nazir. It's one of the three kabbanas he brings when he terminates his naziris. When he finishes his naziris, l'shem Chattas mitzayra, take sheira. And it should be teratza, it should be acceptable. Da'amar Achman is Zayis Teres HaChattas, and we should say Torah Achas L'Kol Chattas. Says Gemara, you're right. According to Reb Shimon, that's the din. Reb Shimon Achanami. Rabbanan. According to Rabbanan, it depends. Ha'amar Rava, Taka Chattas Chelev Sheshachta L'Shem Chattas Dam. If he brings a Chattas Chelev and he has in mind that it should be a Chattas for eating blood, or L'Shem Chattas Avodas Kechavim, Ksheira, Taka it's kosher. L'Shem Chattas Nozer, L'Shem Chattas Mitzayra Psulu. But if he had in mind that it should be for a Chattas of a Nozer or a Chattas Mitzayra, there it's possible. Now there's different girsayos over here. And we're going to be gairis, Dahani Oilus Ninu. We're going to take out the word Bahadayu, and we're going to read it, Dahani Oilus Ninu. Because these Chattases, the Chattas of the Mitzayra, and the Chattas of a Nazir are similar to an Oila. Why? Because the Chattas of the Nazir and the Chattas of the Mitzayra don't come for sin. The Chattas of the Nazir comes in order to allow him to drink wine and to be Metamel Mason. And the Chattas of the Mitzvah comes to allow him to eat kachim and enter into the Mikdash. So it's a different, it operates differently, and Rabbanan hold, therefore it's no good. Rav Acha Berei de Rava, he argues on the whole thing. He says, no way, Barry. If you do a Chattas and you have in mind a different thing, you have in mind for dam, you have in mind for Avodah Zarah, for Shor Mitzayra, they're all possible. Rav Achbarei Rav Masala Lakula Lapsula, because he darshins v'shachat osa l'chatas, and he says osa means you have to have in mind a specific chatas, l'shem oisei chatas. Now the Gemara says, let's go to how Rav Ashi deals with the stira of Rav Shimon. And there was a stira of Rav Shimon, and how does Rav Ashi deal with the stira of Rav Shimon? Again, remember, first Rav Shimon says, if you do a machbas l'shum marcheshes, it's good. And then he says, it says, kodesh kodashim ikachatas, then a mincha is like a chatas, just like chatas is shalom l'shma apostle. So the mincha is also shalom l'shma apostle. So how do you answer that stira? So says the Gemara, Rav Ashi Amalei Kasha can become its machbas l'shum marcheshes. One is where he said that he's doing a machbas for a marcheshes, and can become its minchas machbas l'shum minchas marcheshes. If he said machbas l'shum marcheshes, that means that he's just saying, I'm doing the machbas, having in mind that it's for the sake of a deep fryer. Having in mind that it's for the sake of a deep fryer, that's nonsensical.
Not mentioning anything about mincha.
Yeah, that's nonsensical. You have in mind for a different keli. That's nonsensical.
So why would the Brisa teach it if it's nonsense?
It's just making, because if the person didn't say mincha, so it's okay. Can become its minchas machbas l'shum minchas marcheshes. Machbas l'shum marcheshes, he just did it for the sake of another keli. B'mana kamachash, if he's having in mind for the sake of another keli, or machshava b'mana, having in mind for a keli like pasla. Minchas machbas l'shum minchas marcheshes, b'mincha the pasla b'machshava kamachash. If you're having in mind for a different mincha, that disqualifies and it's no good. Says the Gemara again, but that's not the. So you're telling me a whole loophole that where Reb Shimon says machbas l'shem marcheshes, it's because he just had in mind for the keli, and having in mind for the keli is nothing. That's not the reason Reb Shimon gives. Reb Shimon says because his actions belie his words. Says the Gemara, he says because his actions contradict his words. As the Gemara again, you see how we're just changing the meaning. Haki kamer, afal gav, the machshava, and here the girsa will be consistent with it again. The machshava deloy mimkari. Here, I might think that since its thought contradicts what he's doing, I might think that that's enough that it's tipasel. Kamash malon that it's not. He says, there his actions don't contradict. And Zrika achas l'kulin, and Kabbalah achas l'kulin. But since he said that he's having in mind for a different carbon, l'shem b'zvicha the pasla bei machshava kamachashev, and therefore it's no good. Says Gemara, but what are you going to explain where he had in mind chareva l'shem blula? We said he's doing a dry carbon, that's a chattis, that doesn't have any shemen, it doesn't have any levina, and he says l'shem belula for the sake of mixed of oil. So there, obviously, he's not doing it l'shem a keli. So why would Reb Shimon say that that's kosher? Says the Gemara, Amalei Rav Achabrei Rav Ashi Chareva Mishum Belula Amai Amar Reb Shimon. He says belula. He just says dry for something that's mixed. It could mean Duncan Hines mix. Having in mind for Duncan Hines mix is also nonsensical. Bila itself is not clear that it means for a mincha nedava. It just says bila. Bila means something that's mixed. It could be Duncan Hines mix. Amalei l'shum bila ba'alma. Says the Gemara, ihachi l'shum shlamim. If he does an island, he does it for the sake of shlamim. Why don't we say shlamim means a peace offering, an apple cake? You give somebody an apple cake for a peace offering. Bourbon, right? Yachi l'shum shlamim nami l'shum shlamim ba'alma. Says the Gemara, no. Shlamim is the name of the carbon. Hachachi hashta. What's the comparison? Hasam zevach gufe ikrei shlam. The carbon itself is called the shlam. A mincha is not called belula. Mincha gufa mi ikrei belula. Is it called mixed? You'd have to say mincha belula. It's never called belula. Belula, it could be Duncan Hines mix. Says the Gemara, Hacha mincha gufa mi ikrei belula? Is it called belula? The kol mincha belula b'shem ksiv. It has to say beforehand mincha. Mincha needed with oil. Belula b'shem ikrei. Or if it said belula b'shemen, but belula stam, if just bila, lo ikrei. That's not called. So now the Gemara gives us one final review over here. Right? Rabbah, how did Rabbah resolve the stira? That he said one is talking about where you had in mind a different holiness. Mincha l'shem acheshes, that's good. And one is having in mind a mincha for a different owner. That's no good. So why don't the other ones answer like Rabbah? So kulu karabba loy imre, the adarabba, machshava de minkara pasal rachmana, because it would make sense that where you do something that contradicts your, where you have in mind a thought that contradicts your actions, that surely should be no good. That's what Rabbah thought. So you would say it makes sense that if you do a machbas l'shem ha'cheshes, it surely should be no good. So the rest of them don't like Rabbah's explanation. Kurava lo yimre. Rava's answer is one we would do it a mincha l'shem mincha, and one you do a mincha l'shem zvachim. And the basis of Rava's pshat is that Reb Shimon dash and zois Torah hamincha Torah akas l'kol hamenachas. So the others don't hold of this drasha of zois Torah loy mashmalah. Rav Ashi lo yimrei. They didn't answer like Rav Ashi, who says that the reason why machbas l'shum marcheshes is good because it's for the sake of the keli, and the sake of the keli is nothing. Mishum kusha de Rav Achabrei de Rava, because of the question of Rav Achabrei de Rava. That Rav Achabrei de Rava says, so then where it's chareva l'shum belula, there it should be puzzle. And they didn't like the answer that belula could mean even a Duncan Hines mix. They didn't like that answer. You know, I'll tell you, Rabbi Isai, Hashem gave us a certain amount of life. And when we get to the next world, he's going to ask us, did we use it correctly? We just spent an hour, and we used it correctly. We used it working on Hashem's Torah. It's not easy. This Gemara is not easy. Working on Hashem's Torah. So bravo to everyone. Even if you didn't understand everything, the bottom line is that we're sitting here learning together. Torah Hashem, Lishma. If you put, the Gemara tells us in Avodah Zarah, if you put all the mitzvahs on one side of the scale and the Gemara on the other side of the scale, it overweighs everything. You know, I always think about the Gemara. Gedayla Talmud Torah Yosim Atzelas Nefashos. I used to have in my share for many, many, many years a dear Talmud, Lenny Lowenthal. He gets mazel tov. He just had a new grandchild. Zeicha lachnis l'brisa shel Avraham Avinu b'zmanai. So sometimes in the middle of the share he had to run out for a telecall. So let's say he went out and he saved somebody's life. It was a code and he saved somebody's life. Gemara is telling us, of course, he has to. If he doesn't run out, he's a chassid shaitan. But in raw merit, who accomplished more? He saved a life, returned a husband to the family, a father to his children, or us learning? Gedayla Talmud Torah Yosem Atzelas Nefashos. It gives us such an idea of what the merit of learning is. The usage of our time, it's just amazing. I once said, the Chavetz Chaim said an amazing thing. He said, imagine you were standing and in front of you somebody clutches his chest and collapses. So you take out your cell phone. What's that cell's number? What's his number? EV7, 718, 732. Finally you figure it out, you call. Where are you? I'm in Lakewood. Where in Lakewood? I don't know. Man, where are you? Give me a landmark. There's a store. By the time you're finished, the man's dead. Your whole life you would regret it. Your whole life. He says you take a Sunday and a person has the whole morning to learn. Instead he wastes away the whole morning trying to figure out what he's going to do in the afternoon. He says, Gedela Talmud Torah Yosem Atzelas Nefashos. The regret that a person should have that he didn't learn. What a wonderful use of time. Now we're going to have a Chumash here.